So we have here Ahmed Khaled Tawfik, who is the Arab world's most prominent best-selling author of fantasy and horror. He's also a medical professor at Egypt's Tanta University and has written over 200 books, although he did tell me in the green room some of them are quite short. Utopia is the first of his novels to appear in English and the first to be made into a film. It's set in 2023 in what he describes as a post-apocalyptic dystopia. The country is divided into the rich, few inhabitants of the gated, US Marine-protected Utopia, located on the north coast, and the others are the poor who live in Cairo. There is no middle class in this society. We have Eric van Lustbader here, who has published more than 25 best-selling novels and has been translated into over 20 languages that are bestsellers worldwide. In 2003, he was asked by the estate of the late Robert Ludlum to continue the series based on Jason Bourne and has written 5 more Bourne novels. He's also written short stories, screenplays, novellas and a graphic novel. But perhaps of most relevance today is that he's also the author of 2 successful, highly regarded major fantasy series, Pearl Saga, which pits 2 very different cultures, one technological and one spiritual, against each other, and the Sunset Warrior cycle. And we have Noura Noman, who is a writer from the United Arab Emirates, already the author of children's books. Her first science fiction novel Ahwan, is that the right? Ahwan, I didn't check that for you before. Ahwan.
And then the Egyptians called it Egwen.
Okay. It won the Etisalat Prize in 2013, and she wrote it in response to a lack of Arabic young adult science fiction. The story is about a 19-year-old girl who comes from a water planet and has the ability to breathe both air and water. And when her infant son gets kidnapped, she has to find a way to save him, while maintaining a sense of balance between peace and violence. So, welcome all of you, thank you for being here. What's interesting about all these 3 writers is that they've all written in other genres apart from science fiction and fantasy. So, my first question to them each is what drew them to this genre and why? So can we start with you, Noura, please?
Ever since I was a teenager, I've been drawn to the paranormal and the unusual. But probably the thing that really changed everything for me was seeing the trailer of Star Wars in 1977. And it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And of course, after watching a movie and nothing else comes out after that, you start looking for material to read, and I've always loved reading. So I loved the fact that I found so much material, that science fiction material in English, so I started just reading English, unfortunately. Why do I write science fiction? Because when I finally decided to write, and they always tell an author, write what you know, I decided to write science fiction because I wanted to make sure that readers read this content because they'd be interested in science fiction. So I chose science fiction.
Thank you. Eric?
Well, science fiction and fantasy was one of the genres, broad genres, that I read from a very early age on. And I was quite affected by the Lord of the Rings, but especially Dune, which was an amazing book because for me, it created a more real world than the Lord of the Rings world, because there was so much politics involved. And it was the first science fiction book that I'd ever read that was involved with real world building, with politics, economics, religion, and I was just fascinated by that. And by the fact that when you write science fiction and or fantasy, the world is your oyster. You can do anything. You can have people be anything that you want them to be. They can move from place to place any way you want them to be. You know, you don't have to have them go by bus or metro or taxi cab or driving. And it's, on the one hand, it's kind of frightening because it's a blank slate. Everything is at your disposal, but on the other hand, it's quite exciting and exhilarating to think that you can create a world or a universe from the ground up.
Thank you. Ahmed?
As for me, I have always been a fan of imagination since I was a kid. Then there was this translated magazine about Superman I was just very impressed by it, and I read it made my dreams, it made my world. Then when I started to write, I discovered that I don't have enough science fiction or horror literature in Arabic tradition. It was on no man's land. So I found it's no man's land, so I can be distinct, I can make a lot of success. In the meantime, I can be myself, I can write whatever I want. So I thought maybe I can be very good in this. I selected it.
Yeah. Now, you've all said that how there's that freedom of being able to do whatever you want, but surely when you actually get down to the reality of writing such a book, there must be some things that are particularly difficult in that and particular challenges. Can you talk about those? Well, let's start with this time.
We use your answers.
The one with the most experience.
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, you know, as I said, it's kind of frightening to think that there's nothing. There's a void. You know, you start from the ground up, but when you start to, I mean, I usually don't write outlines for my books. They grow more organically, but with science fiction, you can't do that. As a world builder, you can't just go willy-nilly ahead, because you've got to know what the fundamentals are, you know, and because you've got to keep them accurate all the time. You can't violate any of the rules that the world has set up.
You spend quite a lot of time working all that out before you
start. Well, you have to. I mean, I will admit that there's some things that I didn't, and then I had to go back and say, "Oops, that's not working." But for the most part, yes, you have to figure out what the political nature is, the religious nature. But the reason I started the Pearl series was that like Noura, I was drawn to a more spiritual nature of the world. And there are all our society is becoming more and more science-oriented, more and more, dictated by science and by physics and by chemistry and by DNA analysis. And to me, the more not that I don't like that, I do, but to me, if you don't balance that off with a spirituality, you get too far away from the roots of everything. And I think especially the roots of happiness. Happiness doesn't come from science and from mathematics or whatever. Science comes from the ground up, literally from the earth up into your soul. And so I created a universe where there was this spiritual civilization that was at war with a technological civilization, because in my world, in my own mind, that was kind of happening. I didn't like having my brain crowded with internet stuff and Twitter tweets and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and information coming at me 24/7, and I felt like it was sort of my spirituality was sort of withering by that, and this was a way for me to counteract it, to build a world where I could live part of my time with this spiritual civilization.
Thank you. Noura.
Was the question?
That's my fault.
I was thinking into
It's about the challenges that come with the freedom, really.
Right. I've always loved world building, and just like Alex said, Dune is one of those books that really show you how big it can be. And that wasn't a problem for me, because as both guests said, it's really wonderful to be able to just write a world from scratch. I think my biggest challenge was the fact that I was writing in a language that I wasn't reading in for the past 3 decades. Arabic was, obviously I know Arabic and I studied it in school and I know how to write reports, etc. But before that I had never written anything, not even a short story, any kind of literature. So probably that was it, and also because as many as there are so many books that are in other languages that teach you how to write, in the Arab world, by then in 2009, I couldn't find any book that taught me how the Arabs wrote literature, for instance. So I had to go back to the 33 years of reading English, and I used that as a map, as a roadmap, how to write my book. And I remember one of my children, my son, the first time he read the book, he said, Mama, do you realize that you write like English, right? But it's in Arabic. And my eldest is here, they all read it, but I think that was the greatest challenge. It wasn't the science fiction part, which I thought was going to be really, really challenging. It wasn't the terminology, it wasn't the world building, it was the fact that was written in Arabic.
And that was very important to you. You very specifically wanted to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
As for me, as I said, there was a privilege in walking in no man's land, but you have no heritage in science fiction that you can depend on. You discover your own rules, you design your own world. There's no critic to tell you whether you're going in the wrong direction. Can you hear me okay? My words are clear. No critic to tell you whether you're walking in the right direction. Even Naguib Mahfouz, the great Egyptian novelist, considered science fiction a second type or a second degree type of art. Nobody, so you're looking in exploring by your own self. Then there's another point, is that science fiction depends on its own rules. You can't break the rules. You have your own rules, even in science fiction. I remember, it's not science fiction, but Harry Potter. There was a snake talking with Harry Potter. Then one of the people who saw the movie said, the snake is blinking. Then the other replied, so you believe that a snake talks. You don't accept she's blinking? He said, no, it can talk, but it cannot blink. You know? This happens exactly in the science fiction. If I imagine that there is a button I press so it stops with the wars and ends poverty, this is nonsense.
It's not scientific.
Well, it's just anything can happen, but you have to write it in a way that your reader believes it. That's the challenge.
Yeah, but it has its own rules.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an integrated world.
Yeah, it has to be scientific.
As Tolkien said, you should believe the world in itself.
Yeah.
Speaking of rules, in Harry Potter, there's a lake in front of Hogwarts, and there's a giant squid in the lake. The giant squids can't live in fresh water. So that made no sense to me whatsoever.
But that's why fantasy.
You should have told Rowling.
The difference between science fiction and fantasy.
Yes.
People just don't understand the difference between the two. And by the way, there's also the added problem that science fiction movies are not science fiction books.
Yeah, indeed.
There is that added problem.
Yes.
As Peter Nichols, the famous Australian critic, said, as regards science fiction, cinema was always
Oh, backwards.
was backwards and dealt stupidly with science fiction because they did with it as a danger, as black magic, exactly.
Yeah.
So they believe that science is a real danger, and then comes the military, which ends the problem all the time. They are very effective, very successful. They always treated science as evil thing. This is cinema is not dealing with science fiction, except Space Odyssey or something like this.
Well, there's another thing. As soon as you hit cinema, you hit shortcuts.
Yeah.
Because every screenplay has shortcuts all the time. That you couldn't possibly, if you did the same shortcuts in a book, your editor would rip you to shreds and say, you can't do that. You know, you have to explain this, that, or the other thing. There's another thing, and that is that cinema will always go for what is visually most interesting. Even if it doesn't make sense within this context of the story, they'll do it that way because it looks better.
It sells.
And that's what Ahmed is talking about. There's a
theatrically attractive. That's what's important.
Not an attractive trait at all.
Okay, I'm interested in this aspect of world building. And when you're talking to people who write literary fiction, they'll often say their starting point is a character, you know, and it's just a very small thing. And I just wonder whether for you, actually, the starting point is a big idea. It's about a world that you want to build, and it's about either the politics or the, you know, is that right, that you have a big idea you want to be able to explore? rather than a little frog?
I personally don't work that way. I mean, I work from the character out.
You do?
Yes, I do. With both my my science, they really straddle science fiction and fantasy. Both series started with a single character, and one of the things that sort of made the Pearl series kind of unique is that the hero is in order to protect him from being killed, by magic he's put into a female body. And a lot of the series, with the first book, is him dealing with the dissonance between genres, between gender. But I feel like if you start with a world and then put characters in it, I just think it's the wrong, to me. I mean, everybody is different. So when I say this is what I do, I don't say that everybody should do the same thing, because if you had 100 writers up here, they'd all have 100 answers, which is the way things work. It's a lonely profession.
Yes.
And you're by yourself, and you create your own methodology.
Yeah.
And so nobody can tell you this is the way you need to do it. That you can't. They do that in film and they do it in TV because it's a collaborative process. But writing is a solo process. It's you and your brain. And basically you can do whatever you want. But for me, character always has to come first, because I'm just a character-oriented kind of guy, and doesn't matter what the genre is. It has to come.
That does seem tricky with this, because if you start with the character, where is that who tells you, as it were? I mean, I don't really like that phrase, but is it from the character that you get a sense of the world that
Well, yeah, because this character in the Pearl series was part of the spiritual civilization.
Okay.
So from him or her, I spun out what that civilization was, what the world was, and then the antagonists, who were the technological invaders. But it all came from a core. The kernel of it was character.
What about you, Noura?
I would have to agree when it comes to, of course, different people have different approaches, but it has to be, because people at the end of the day, when they read a book, they need to get attached to someone in that book. It's just the natural thing to do. It's human. So it had to be a girl. She had to have this extremely devastating thing happen to her. It changed her life. Now, everything else that happened also came from the fact that I wanted to do two things at the same time. A character who is very hard not to get attached to and sympathize with, but also what's happening in my part of the world. Because then it's not in any way lecturing, but in creating the same things that happen in my part of the world in a science fiction book, then you can have that character go through all of the adversity that happens, and then they would be representative of everyone we know in the Arab world, in a way, or not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people. Because she's a refugee. And how many refugees are in the Arab world? 15 million and counting, unfortunately. And also at the same time, we have these people, individuals, groups who prey on the minds of the disenfranchised and the marginalized, and they tell them, I'm going to be building you a world, or building you a country. All you have to do is to blow yourself up, steal, kill, etc. And those two things go together. You can't have one without the other. The status quo in the Arab world, and the character that represents a lot of people in the Arab world. But again, I mean, I've only written 3 books.
No, it doesn't matter.
And it's always about the same person because it's a series. But it's definitely character-oriented.
Thank you.
Definitely.
I use a combination of, because I'm a character-oriented guy also, I believe what Dickens said, you create amazing and believable characters and let them interact on paper together. But I have to create an atmosphere. Usually it's a political atmosphere, political metaphor. There are things you're afraid to talk about, you'll get arrested. So use metaphor. Utopia represents what will happen 30 years later. I have another story called In the Passage of Mice, where there's no light in the world at all. They are all pessimistic, but they represent an exaggeration of a political situation. But I think it's the character, the creation of the character is the most important thing for me, and I give it a lot of time.
Well, I think the hallmark of especially of science fiction, but also of fantasy, down through the decades, has been social commentary. We comment on the times and things that particularly annoyed or upset the writers. And it's a great way to comment on society because, well, nobody can say, well, you're using this person, you're using that person. It's always
you can't be fooled. You can never be fooled.
Yeah, exactly. It's all kind of metaphorical.
Yeah.
But to me, that's what makes it more powerful, and it draws me in much more readily than if it were like a dry treatise on, this is wrong, this is right, I mean, in that sense, it's really a very rich genre.
Yeah.
Yes.
And do you think it's particularly rich as well for the whole aspect of cross-cultural communication and to the whole thing of empathy, difference? Do you think of all the genres it's the best for that?
Well, yes, I have to say, and fantasy. And it's the fact that there are no rules to it that make it the best, and also at the same time the fact that when you're writing science fiction, you can go out there and create other species and other races, etc., and have them interact with each other the same way that people on Earth are interacting. And I remember I was in that session with Alan Dean Foster. We were saying, we can't even stand sometimes our own neighbor because he's different from us, and wait till the aliens come down on Earth. What is going to happen then? But to me, science fiction has taught me, science fiction and fantasy has taught me the importance of building bridges, meeting other people, seeing the other as people who are similar to us, but they come from a different place, and maybe they have different ways of looking at things. But our priorities are the same, and this building of bridges in science fiction and fantasy has been more educational to me than any of the other books that I have read, personally.
Well, because there are no rules, as Noura said, and we've all said, the language of science fiction fantasy is universal.
Yes.
Because we're not dealing in a specific society in which a person from another society really doesn't understand very well. It's alien to all of us in a way, but what's going on within that universe is very understandable to us, no matter where we come from. And in that sense, it really is the genre without borders.
That's heartening, because I think sometimes some of the science fiction books that were written a long time ago are just astonishingly impressive now when you read them.
Yes.
I mean, it's amazing.
It is amazing.
And that had led me to reflect that perhaps it's only with hindsight we can get these messages, but what you're saying is that it's there to be seen and learnt from in the now.
Absolutely. Absolutely, very important.
What do you think that there is so much less science fiction in the Arabic cultures at the moment than there is? I mean, in the US and China, apparently it's going mental.
Oh,
it's a
is it?
huge market for science fiction. Yeah.
In China.
What do you think is the reason for?
Well, mine is my own, opinion, as I said before, during the session before. In the Arab world, we don't really encourage our kids to go into science. I don't know why that's happened. I mean, it didn't happen suddenly, it obviously happened gradually. A lot of these countries are new. They emerged after World War II. And so maybe some of them, like Egypt, for instance, they were very, very strict with their kids. They either became engineers, دكتور, I think, مهندسين في مصر. In Egypt, people really, really want their kids to become engineers
and
doctors,
physicians.
right? Yeah, which is very important. But then there are the other aspects, right? There's chemistry, there's biology, there's marine biology, there's astronomy, physics, all of that. And I think a lot of the countries in the Arab world haven't really focused on that and didn't realize that there is a huge job market out there for science. Also, the educational system, which has failed miserably, repeatedly. And then, of course, then we don't understand how you go into research and development, and then you become a researcher, and then you ask for a grants in the Arab world for science and research is almost non-existent. And patents, etc. If we were to ask a lot of the scientists of the world today, and the best institutions, what did you read as a child or as a young adult, a teen? They would mostly say, we read science fiction. Right? Now, science fiction introduced them to something that was astonishing. They went into science. They then created and invented the thing that was in the book. And then it goes on and on. This is the importance of science fiction. Now, if we were to create science fiction in abundance, in Arabic, we would create a generation that loves science, and then it would go back into making science fiction.
That's true.
Do you feel quite a responsibility? That feels like a...
Yes, but I didn't study science.
She seems quite up to the task.
Also, you said earlier that you knew your character had to be female.
Yes.
Why is that? It's not just presumably because you are a woman.
No, but because it's important. There are a lot of role models out there, and some of them are not so good. But a role model that was a female in an Arab book is very important to me. They need to see the fall and the rise again of a character who is a female. There are so many books that are about young men. Also, I had to have her lose a child and she had to be a mother. Just to be fair.
Eric, presumably, I know that you go to a lot of festivals and you must meet a lot of your audience. Would you say is a real mix of age and gender in your readers?
You're talking about science fiction and fantasy?
Yes, I am,
Yes.
yes.
I think one of the interesting things about science fiction and fantasy is that it appeals to everyone from about, maybe 13 up to 80, because it fires the imagination. And people love to read about things that they can only dream about, or that they haven't dreamt about but would like to dream about. And it's not so, I think that firing the imagination is something that all authors, all writers should aspire to. And I think it is a built-in component of science fiction fantasy, because you are engaging in your own fantasy, your own imagination, and by design that translates to the reader's imagination as well. So I think it's quite an exciting genre. I don't think that there are other genres where you could say people love it from 8 to 80, or from 13 to 80. I just don't. I don't see that.
Yeah.
But I do see it in science fiction and fantasy.
Yeah. Would you agree, Ahmed? Your audience, would you say a mix of age?
You asked a question. I thought everyone will answer the same question.
Yes, well, it's sort of linked. I asked her about the gender of her. It was important for her that she had a female.
Yeah, you're talking about the Arab world.
Oh yes.
Science fiction is Arab world.
Why is science fiction?
Oh yes,
yes,
yeah.
it's important. Yeah.
I want to answer this.
So yes, absolutely, yes.
Everybody is receiving a question. As I said, we had always a great tradition of science fiction in the past. We have the legend of Ibn Tufayl Hayy ibn Gilgamesh. Some consider the first science fiction novel written in history, Gilgamesh. Also, we have Qazwini, the province of Al-Qazwini, and the fantastic maps of all the times. Then there was no Noman, complete silence for many centuries. Then the first novel came to life at the end of 19th century. Some consider it the beginning of the 20th century. In fact, it's the end of the 19th century. It's called Francis Fathallah, he's from Syria. Wrote the first novel, then we're back. So the tradition of novel writing is almost recent. We know very little, we're exploring the genre already. Now most people believe that novel should be talking about social condition, political condition, emotional. Huh? Nobody believes about talking about another world, another planet, something like this. People don't understand this concept very much. It's growing very slowly. Second thing is, indeed, unfortunately, I told you before, the Arab world learned to consume science and not to produce it. This is a real problem. This is a very horrible problem that makes science fiction a strange blend in our society. I think years will come and people will try to identify with this kind of literature, but not now. Right. It's very early, still very early. They still look suspiciously at espionage stories and the detective stories. This is another one. And horror, they look suspicious.
True.
Yeah.
Soon we're going to hand over to you, Steve. I'm sure you've got some interest.
Can I just say one?
Sure, yeah, we've got a few minutes left.
And this speaks to, I think, Noura and I are drawn to the spiritual side, is that there's something called the collective unconscious, which is something that is without borders, that exists in all of mankind, womankind, whatever, humankind. And the issue of collective unconscious was brought home to me when I was doing research on shamanism, world shamanism.
You're a Reiki trainer, a Reiki master. You're a Reiki master, it's written Reiki.
Yes.
Written in Wiki.
So world shamanism, you know, when you read about vastly different cultures from different parts of the world, they all have the same myths.
Yeah.
No matter whether it's Iceland or Southeast Asia or Australia or the Middle East, the creation myths, the basic myths that bind this shamanism together are, I mean, they come in different guises perhaps, but if you look beneath that, they're all the same. And you wonder to yourself, well, how is that possible? And I don't know whether it's because Babel actually really existed, and at one point humankind was all together, spoke all one language, had all the same creation myths, and then were dispersed. I don't know. Nobody knows. It's one of those unknowable things. But what I can say is that it's one of the things that makes science fiction fantasy so fascinating, because it taps into that collective unconscious and the myths that Ahmed was talking about that are ancient, that come alive through our writing.
So the last thing I wanted to ask you before we hand over is about your best read, the book you love the most that you read in the science fiction genre. So if you're going to tell us briefly about it and why you love it so much. So we start with you, Ahmed. We start with you?
A Stranger in a Strange Land, Robert and Lines. I think it's the best. The things you said about dunes at the beginning, I think they apply here. You got religion, you got, you know, the idea of Mowgli, the boy bred by jungle animals, and then he is bred by Martians.
Okay.
Many of the new words in English language were invented, like rock, like some words new words in English language were created by this story. It's a political background. It talks about religion. Even the hippies made it as holy book. The holy book, it became a religion. The novel itself became a religion later. It's an amazing book, I have tried to translate it in a simplified version, because I can't be another thing. I can't tell everything in the Arab world written there. Very simplified, and a very abridged script.
Okay,
But I like it very much.
thank you. Eric?
And the second is 1984, but let's keep on.
It's very popular these days.
Your turn, sir.
You asked me before, and I told you one book, but actually, it has to be two books. I mean, Dune was something that really fired my imagination and made me think about world building. But the book that I love the most is a fairly new book called Seven Eves by an American writer called Neil Stephenson, which is a terrifying book about the end of the world, end of the earth, not the end of humankind. Seven Eves means the seven women from whom mankind is reborn, because it all...
No males?
No.
We don't need men.
Well, you do need men. But the basis of the new civilization is from these seven women, and it's and it's just an amazing book. And I guarantee you, if you do read it, and when you look up at the moon at night, you'll never see the same again.
One funny thing about this, the Komodo dragon. You know Komodo dragon?
Very well.
Yes.
It's when the society is mainly females. There's a phenomenon called parthenogenesis. Half the number become males, so that they can copulate. Half the number change into males.
Interesting. Okay,
There's something.
that explains a few things.
They're all technically, but it's not, so you have to.
So, again, Dune is one of my favorites because when I read it, I think I was 17 or 18 when I read it. It was just a prime example of how to build worlds. And because of the Arabic themes that were in it and all those Arabic words and the Mahdi and it was just absolutely fantastic and the parallels between some of the Arab countries and the oil and the importance of oil and the spice in Dune. But the latest one has been Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie, and of course it's the first of a trilogy. And I just love the way that she was telling it from so many different viewpoints, and at the same time there were flashbacks and of what happened. So this character was sometimes in her many bodies in the past, and then the one body in the present. It was just amazing the way that she presented the whole thing, and it's no wonder that she won all of the
That's the next book I'm going to read.
Absolutely.
I love the way that you never meet a good writer who doesn't read voraciously and isn't incredibly generous about writers who are writing at the moment, so thank you for that. Okay, so your chance, over to you now.